Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and guys, it is time for our Week 1 NHL Power Rankings. We didn't have a Power Rankings last week. There just wasn't enough games out of the way. Some teams hadn't even played yet. Some teams had played 3 games. So I decided we'll wait till this week for our first regular season Power Rankings for the 2021-2022 NHL season. So let's get right into it. Starting off at number 32, I'm looking at my Power Rankings this year as if we had a 1v1 against the 31st team versus the 32nd team and so on and so forth, who would beat the other team? And that's kind of how I played this. And that's kind of what you're going to see from these rankings, especially toward the bottom. So at number 32, we got the Arizona Coyotes. The Coyotes have not won a game yet this season. They're 0-3-1 to start the year. They didn't have the best start to their season. Now, the good news is they are on a little homestand in Arizona this weekend. Going into next week, it'll give them some momentum going into their next little road trip. But right now, this team has struggled to score goals. We knew that was going to be a problem for the Coyotes. Clayton Keller only has 2 goals on the season. Both of them came on the power play. And those are the only 2 power play goals the Coyotes have had through the first 4 games of this season. It's definitely been a slow start for the Yotes. Their goaltending actually hasn't looked terrible. It hasn't been great. It really comes down to the lack of scoring, and they just have not been able to keep up with their opponents so far. At number 31 is the Montreal Canadiens. We know the Canadiens have had a really bad start to the year. It's been very much publicized in the NHL. They're 0-5 to start the season. They have not won a game. They've lost tight games, though. They lost 5-1 in Buffalo. That wasn't a great game. They lost to the Rangers 3-1. They lost to the Sharks 4-0 or something like that. So this has just been a team that gives up too many goals and doesn't score enough goals. Their defense in the box, right in the crease, in between the dots, has not been good enough. They've let too many guys get in front of the net to score those goals. And that's why we are where we are. They don't have the leadership in a Shea Weber. They don't have the goaltending in Carey Price. And you find yourselves 0-5 to start the year. Not to mention Kotkaniemi scores a goal against you the other night, just to add a little salt to the wound. It's been a rough season for the Habs, and I don't really know what's going to come in to fix that. I think this is going to be rough for the Canadiens. This is the 3rd time in over 150 years in the Canadiens franchise that they have started this season 0-5. Just a surreal season in Montreal. At number 30 is the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, out of the Tire Fires that have not won a game yet this season, I think the Blackhawks are the most optimistic out of those 3. And the reason is they have the talent there. They just haven't been able to put it together. Now, I think that loss against the Islanders the other night, Tuesday? That was a heartbreaker for the Blackhawks at home. And you could see the boos and the jeers from the fans when they were announcing Jeremy Colleton as the head coach. A lot of fans definitely have lost that flavor of Colleton. It really, even from opening night when he was first brought into Chicago, obviously replacing Joel Quenneville, things just have not gone well for the Blackhawks. And it's really frustrating to watch this team because they show glimpses of a team that can do it. But Marc-Andre Fleury hasn't been great. Lankinen hasn't been great, and the goal scoring just hasn't been enough. And here they are, 0-4-1 to start their campaign this year. At number 29, we got the Nashville Predators. They lost to the Seattle Kraken. They had a couple of close games in Columbus. They had a couple of games where they maybe could have won, but they've lost too many games, tight scoring games. It's been 3-1, 4-1 losses, and that's been the difference for the Predators. And the lack of scoring from those top guys has made it really difficult for this team to be competitive. And that Central Division has looked pretty good with teams like, St. Louis really kind of rounding out that division. Colorado is going to hopefully get better at some point. I just don't see it for the Predators this season. Now, at number 28, we have the Seattle Kraken, the expansion team. Things have not gone well for Seattle. They're 1-3 to start the season this year. They just haven't 1-3 to start the season. I think they're 1-3-1, but we could check that. The Kraken just have not gotten the breaks, and kind of like the Blackhawks, they just haven't had great goaltending. And, that's Grubauer and Joey Decord, mostly Grubauer. He's got a below a 900 save percentage. It's just not going to cut it. They had a rough East Coast road trip. The Metropolitan Division looks beastly, and the way they handled Seattle, they lost in Columbus, they lost in Philly, they lost in New Jersey, and those are probably the lower echelon teams in that division. Now, tonight, they have their big game against Vancouver. That's going to be really if they're going to have a turning point early in the season, this is that game for the Kraken, and we'll see the magnitude of that game tonight. 10 o'clock Eastern, I think 7 o'clock West Coast time. So that'll be a big one up in Seattle for the home opener for the Kraken. And again, they do start a homestand this weekend, so I expect them to pick up some wins here at home. We'll see what happens, though. Number 27, we got the Anaheim Ducks. Now, the Ducks have showed some promising signs. They've got 2 wins on the season. They won the first game of the season against Winnipeg, the home opener, and then they stole a game up in Calgary. Jamie Drysdale getting the OT winner. He's been the workhorse on the back end for the Ducks this year. The Ducks have shown some promise. John Gibson hasn't been his best. Again, I think the defense in front of him is partially to blame there. I am the John Gibson #1 fan there. So it's one of those things for the Ducks. They're doing better than we thought, but then again, they had a really bad season last year, so they had to get a little bit better. And we are seeing some of that improvement this year under Dallas Eakins' team in Anaheim. At number 26, we got the Ottawa Senators. Now, the Senators are in a weird spot because we don't really know where they are yet. We've only seen one game of Brady Tkachuk in the lineup. Give it another week of Brady Tkachuk in the lineup, we'll see this team score more goals. The depth scoring was there for the Ottawa Senators to start the year, but now we've seen Drake Batherson get on the board. We're going to start seeing Josh Norris get on the board, and that's the top line. Tim Stützle has got to score at some point. Once those guys start scoring with Tkachuk, I think the Ottawa Senators could see some movement up in the standings next week. They're 2-2 right now. A big week ahead for the Ottawa Senators. And Anton Forsberg seems to be the starter there in Ottawa, which is interesting. So we're continuing with Seattle. At number 25 is the Vancouver Canucks. They have a big one tonight in Seattle. They're 2-1 to start the season. They didn't have the best East Coast road trip either, but they're one of the teams that have played more games in the league, but we still don't really know where they sit. I'm not confident. They have the same record as the Leafs, 2-1, but for Vancouver, I just don't know if they have it this year. Demko has looked okay for the Canucks. He hasn't been great, and I think they're going to need Demko to be great this season. They're going to need to see more from Besser, who just got his first of the season. He came out of the gate slow, wasn't playing a couple games. He's back in the lineup. Pettersson, you're going to need to see Pearson scoring. Podkolzin was scratched the other night. What's up with that? We're going to need to see that scoring from the Canucks if they want to be in the playoffs, because that Pacific Division, with teams like San Jose and Anaheim kind of, making a point for themselves this year, that division may see a little bit of a shakeup. It may be an opportunity here for the Canucks to maybe sneak in. At number 24, staying on the West Coast, we got the Calgary Flames. Now, the Flames are 1-1 to start their season. They had a tough loss against the Ducks. They did find a way to win, though, and they're able to get their record to 1-1. But they need to see some improvement here. This is a team that expects to be in the playoffs this year. They're going to have to win those tight scoring games. And with Jacob Markstrom, they do have a chance to do that. I am excited to see what the Flames do this season. They could definitely move up next week, being on their homestand. Now, moving up to 23, I'm shocked I'm talking about the Buffalo Sabres here, but the Sabres are 3-1 to start this season. They outshot the Boston Bruins last night, but they did lose that game. So they're 3-1, playing Linus Ullmark, their old goaltender. Things obviously didn't go well in that game, but I'm expecting the Sabres to kind of ride that momentum just a little bit longer. I think some of these guys have overperformed to start the season, Oposo, Gergensen, Skinner. We're seeing those guys play really well. The question is, how long can they do that? That's why they are 3-1. There are teams with lesser records than the Buffalo Sabres, but like I talked about, in a head-to-head with number 22, which is the Winnipeg Jets, I still have the Jets beating the Sabres in that game if they were to play tonight. That's just how I look at it. So yes, there is their actual record, but especially early in the season, don't let the record deceive you. I think the Sabres are a portion of that. And I did give them some love. I moved them out of the top, they're right outside the bottom 10. So I'm giving them some love, but there is still that you got to prove it to me a little bit longer in order for the Sabres to get more love. That's why at 22 we got the Jets. They're 1-2-1 this season, but they have picked up a point in 2 of their 4 games. Now they have had some issues here recently with Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele being placed on the COVID protocol, but that's just an outside noise, outside distraction. The good news is they still have a lot of good centers. They have Paul Stastny, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Kopp. They have guys that can fill out that center group that don't think it's that big of a loss. Now the question is, what are they going to do on the wing? Going to rely more on Jansen Harkins, guys like Christian Veselainen, and they're going to have to step into the lineup and play. Cole Perfetti for Winnipeg. So those are the guys I'm expecting the Jets to see a little bit more from, as some of their leaders like Scheifele and Wheeler are out right now. Ooh, bad voice crack. At number 21, we have the New York Islanders. Now the Islanders, from what they did in their first 2 games to their last 2 games, they're totally different stories. The first 2 games, they lost to Carolina and Florida pretty, convincingly. They lost those games 6-3 in Carolina. I think it was 6-1 in Florida. And they got their butts kicked. Ilya Sorokin looked all out of sorts, didn't look great. He's been the only goaltender for the Islanders to start this year. He's the only guy that started because they haven't put in Corey Schneider or Ken Appleby. They have gone with Sorokin. In the past 2 games, Sorokin has turned it around. Now, the game in Chicago, he stole that one for the Islanders. They win that one 4-1. And then they play another game in Columbus. They probably should have won that game, but Patrick Laine gets the OT winner. And the Islanders had plenty of opportunities to finish that game. So, for the Islanders, they're at 21. I expect them to move up because we are seeing their game improve here from week 1 to week 2 of the NHL season. I expect that to continue to progress for the Islanders. So they are 1-2-1. It's an ugly record, but I have seen some signs for the Islanders that they could get themselves out of this. Number 20, we have the Detroit Red Wings. They got a big win over the Blue Jackets, handing the Blue Jackets their first loss of the season. They're 2-1-1 on the season. I like what I've seen here from Detroit. There are some signs of, success coming here. There is some distractions, though. Dylan Larkin was suspended. Now you see Tyler Bertuzzi. What is he at? 5 or 6 goals on the season right now. He's playing quite well. Nedeljkovic and Greiss getting it done in between the pipes. I think the Detroit Red Wings here, we're seeing Moritz Seider play almost 20 minutes a night. There is some optimism in Detroit. I'm excited to see what they do this year. But again, you still need to see some more. I want to see more from that scoring depth. Guys like Adam Ernie, Pia Suter. When are those guys going to start picking up some points? They need that depth, as well as Philip Zadina. Who, again, if he's injured or not, that's also going to play into it. Man, my nose is super itchy, guys. I apologize for that. At number 19, we have the Boston Bruins. Now, I wasn't really sure where the Bruins stood even last night. They were 1-1. They end up going to 2-1 on the season. They beat the Buffalo Sabres, who they hand the Sabres their first loss of the season. It's nice seeing guys like Pasternak get on the board. Charlie Coyle with 3 points last night. You need to see those guys play for the Bruins. That's going to be critical. They're 2-1 on the season. They probably should be higher in my rankings based off how they played. But again, they've only played 3 games, so I just don't have enough of a sample size to really see where the Bruins are at. They're at number 19. The Vegas Golden Knights, man, how they've slipped. They were number 2 in my power rankings, last power rankings. They're number 18 today. And the Vegas Golden Knights are 1-3 to start their season. Their only victory came against the Seattle Kraken, which was opening night. So this is a team that is now lost for a week and a half now. They just haven't been able to get enough good goaltending from Robin Lehner, and they haven't had enough scoring. Now, whether that's because Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone are out, that probably hurts them as well. But we need to see guys picking up that slack. And we're just not seeing that. You want to see guys like Nolan Patrick and Brett Howden get in there, maybe pick up some depth scoring. They're just not getting that. And you can't just rely on that second line of Carlson and Marchessault to get you going. You need some more scoring there. Morgan Riley, or Riley Smith. He could be there, right? But yeah, Vegas, not liking what I've seen so far from them. And there is a team in that Pacific Division that I do have higher than them right now. I'm not liking what I've seen from Vegas, man. Not feeling the love there. And number 17, yeah, this is crazy. At 17, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets. Who would have thought in week 1 we'd have the Blue Jackets ahead of the Golden Knights? Wow. They're 3-1 to start the season. They just beat the New York Islanders. They beat the Predators. I'm trying to remember who the other victory was. They did lose to the Red Wings, but the Red Wings look like a pretty respectable team. Again, they're at 20. So the Blue Jackets just, I don't know. I don't know how long-term this is going to be. They're getting some good scoring depth. Their goaltending has been good. Merzlikins has been great for them. And Patrick Laine's got 2 overtime winners this season. So 2 of those wins, you could thank Patrick Laine. He's got 4 points on the year for them. So that's the kind of stuff where the Blue Jackets, again, it's like the Sabres. Is it sustainable? Now, again, they beat some pretty good hockey clubs in that stretch. I think it was, who did they beat? Seattle, the Islanders, and Nashville. Which, again, those teams we already talked about, they're lower than them in the standing, or in the power rankings and in the standings. So we'll see when they start playing some more difficult competition this week. We'll probably get a better idea of just where the Blue Jackets are right now. Now, number 16, this is another one. They were the number 1 team in my power rankings, last power rankings. And it's at number 16, it's the Colorado Avalanche. Guys, their only victory was against the Chicago Blackhawks, who are still yet to get a victory this season. And the Avalanche are 1-3 right now. They've lost their last 3 games, kind of like Vegas, similar story. So I don't know where I'm at with the Avalanche. The goaltending, Darcy Kemper and Jonas Johansson haven't been great, but they haven't gotten that scoring. Their defense has been a little bit lackadaisical in front of the net in their own zone. And we saw this last season from the Avalanche. Don't let this start fool you. We saw them do the same thing last year. They will pick it up again. I truly believe that. I think Jared Bednar has a hard time getting his team going early in the season. That's probably something he could work on. But this has never been a team that's had great starts to their season. So I still have them at 16. They do have that 1-3 record, though, which, again, I don't like looking at just the record, but the way they've played does give you some genuine concern and a little bit of a flag up in Colorado. At 15, we have the LA Kings. The Kings have been okay. They're kind of like Vancouver. It's more of a wait and see. They have played 4 games. They've only won 1 of those games, though. They lost to Vegas, who I don't see as a very highly regarded team. Actually, no, they beat Vegas. So, I don't know. LA, the good thing about LA is their core is scoring. We're seeing Drew Doughty score. Andrei Kopitar's got 4 or 5 goals. Dustin Brown's got a couple goals. Deneau has a goal. So we're seeing some of the guys that need to score for the LA Kings scoring goals. I think give it another week, we'll start to see them round out into form. And I think when they play the San Jose Sharks, I think that'll be a good test for the Kings in terms of where they really are right now. Are they one of those lower teams still? Or are they starting to pick up steam? And as a team like Vegas starts to fall early this season, could the Kings take advantage of that and maybe be a contender in that Pacific Division? We'll have to wait and see very early on, but I do like what I've seen from that core from the LA Kings. Kind of like a coming out from the dead party for the LA Kings and their guys. So moving up to number 14 is the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are 2-1. They had a pretty quiet week. They played the Kraken and the Washington Capitals. They went 1-for-1 in that stretch. They handed the Kraken a pretty nice L, a 4-2 victory for the Devils. They did take the L back, though, when the Washington Capitals came into town. The Devils were 2-0 coming into that game. But now we're starting to see some injuries again for the Devils. Jack Hughes, a separated shoulder. He'll be out for some time. We don't really have a actual timetable, but he's going to be out. Mackenzie Blackwood, he's out of the lineup. So now they bring up Scott Wedgwood. And this is going to be an interesting story to see Bernier and Wedgwood. Will they be able to hold down the fort with Blackwood out and Jack Hughes out? That's a big loss for the Devils. So that's why they are at 14. I like what I've seen from them early, but that Washington game might be a little bit of a foretelling story when they play these teams in the Metro. You're not going to be playing Seattle. They're going to play them maybe three times this season, I think. 3 times. So I don't know, man. I think this is still early on for the Devils, but I like what I've seen. But now these injuries coming up, there is some concern for my Devils. Number 13, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know, the Devils and the Lightning next to each other in Week 1. That's interesting. This has been a team that they've had their struggles as well. They're 2-2 to start the year. Kucherov's injury could be detrimental for them. Andrei Vasilevsky hasn't looked like he did last season. There is some genuine concern there, but I still left them in the top 15 because they do have Stamkos. They do have Braden Point, who's just getting going. So it's still early in the year, and some of those young guys, it's some of their first weeks in the NHL. So as those guys start to get more comfortable, we'll start to evaluate them then. But I still have them at 13 this week. And number 12 is the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars moved up big time last night because the Bruins look like a pretty presentable team. They beat them. The Rangers look like a pretty presentable team. They beat them as well. So the Dallas Stars with Braden Holtby seem to be doing pretty well. Holtby is kind of having a resurgent season. I may have to make a video about Holtby. He's playing quite well for the Dallas Stars. And the Stars are getting depth scoring. We're seeing guys like Michael Raffl get on the board. Andrew Cogliano getting... Actually, no, Cogliano's in San Jose. Scratch that. Radek Faksa scoring goals. You're seeing the guys that normally we talk about the Stars don't get enough scoring from those guys. They're scoring the goals. What happens when Jamie Benn, Sagan, Radulov get on the board? This team's going to be a real threat in that Central Division. And we're seeing maybe some teams, like Colorado struggle out of the gate. That may be an opportunity for Dallas to make themselves a real threat in that division. I like what I've seen from Dallas. They've beaten some pretty reputable opponents. Can they keep it going throughout the season? That's going to be the big question. But at number 12 is the Stars. At number 11 is the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs are kind of a weird team here. Matthews obviously didn't start the season with the Leafs. It took till game 3 or 4 against the New York Rangers to see him in action. But I like what we've seen from the Leafs at points. Now, there is some issues with them, though. The power play has been a little bit of an issue. Peter Mrazek still being injured means Michael Hutchinson has to come in. They kind of took a fat L last night against San Jose. Those are the kind of things I do have some concern about for the Leafs. John Tavares just got his first goal of the season. Marner, I don't think Marner has a goal yet for the Leafs. Nylander, coming out a little sluggish. So there is some concern for the Leafs. Their record indicates they are a team that is struggling a little bit. But again, they have picked up a point in 3 of their first 5 games. So take with that what you will, right? That's kind of what you have to look at. So moving up into the top 10, of course a bike has to go by. Thank you very much for disturbing the video. And number 10 is the Minnesota Wild. The Wild are undefeated right now. They're 3-0 to start the season. They've looked pretty good so far. I really like what I've seen from them. Kaprizov getting into a little bit of a skirmish there with the Jets. Foligno throwing the Superman punch. Definitely igniting that rivalry there because both teams are good. The Jets and the Wild. So Cam Talbot's looked pretty great for the Wild. That was a diamond in the rough for them. Great ad for them. And here we are, the Minnesota Wild, man. They're making a case for themselves in that Central Division. And I know some fans weren't too happy with my ranking for them in the preseason rankings. They definitely got the love this week. They are now at number 10. Now at number 9, we have the San Jose Sharks. And these teams, we're getting into more of the elitist teams right now. The Sharks are 4-0 to start the season. Now, if I told you in the preseason rankings, I think they were a bottom 10 team. If you told me the Sharks were going to start the season 4-0, I probably would have laughed at you. But I don't have any hate toward Evander Kane, but I think this Kane situation has created a distraction in that room. And I think the fact that he's not in the room is actually a net benefit for the Sharks to start the season. And they're scoring goals. Logan Couture, I think, has 4 goals on the season already. He had 2 last night against the Leafs. James Reimer has looked great. Aiden Hill has been able to hold his own. And they're scoring from the back end. Carlson's got a goal. Burns has a goal. We're seeing some scoring here from the Sharks that we haven't seen in probably 2 or 3 years. This is some really good stuff for the Sharks. I'm really excited to see how this continues for them because the division has become theirs. Vegas has fallen off. We really haven't seen that, that really growth from the Kings. So right now, you're looking at the Oilers and the Sharks as the top 2 teams in the Pacific Division. Very interesting stuff. But I like what I've seen from San Jose. Can they keep it up, though? That's really the big question. At number 8 is the St. Louis Blues. They're 3-0 to start their season. They played a great game in Vegas the other night, and Vladimir Tarasenko has been really a man on a mission. I don't know if this is like, exciting, because Blues fans probably are thinking he's trying to he's trying to raise his trade market value. Is that all this is, or does he really want to put up these points? It's probably a combination of both. It's a win-win, right? So I think what we're seeing from the Blues right now is, a team in a transition. They needed some young blood in their team. You see some young guys get in the lineup. Jordan Kyrou, Clem Kostin, Jake Neighbors making the team out of camp. And I think that little bit of youth in the roster has definitely given some life to the St. Louis Blues. And we're seeing that kind of pay out here early on. And the Blues are now 3-0 to start the season. And they look pretty good on their West Coast road trip. That will continue. They beat the Coyotes. They beat the Golden Knights. I think they play a couple more games in the Midwest before heading home. But I like what I've seen from the Blues. Good stuff to start the year. Now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are at number 7 here. And the reason they're not higher, because I like the way the Penguins have played. They beat who did they beat? I'm trying to remember. One of their losses was to Dallas in overtime. They beat the... Man, guys, I apologize for this. Who did they beat? I'm trying to remember. They beat Tampa Bay and somebody else to start the season. But Pittsburgh in those games has looked good, but now all these injuries are just stacking up for them. They're without Crosby, Malkin, and Carter. Jeff Carter. Those are 3 centers for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Bloop. Gone. Just like that. Just it's like deleting an email. You just click the trash button and it's gone forever. And all of a sudden, 3 guys seemingly are gone for the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. So we'll see what happens here. Hopefully this COVID issue doesn't become more of an issue for the Penguins and we see more guys step out. But Jeff Carter is definitely a huge loss for the Penguins, especially with the loss of Crosby and Malkin right now. But with what I've seen on the ice, they have been able to chug it together. And Tristan Jarry's played well. So you got to give them some love there. And again, they're 2-0-2. They have picked up a point in all 4 of their first games to start the season. Now at number 6, we have the other Pennsylvania team. It's the Philadelphia Flyers. Again, they're kind of like the Penguins, but I think there's more optimism because they don't have all these injuries. And I think what I like about Philadelphia is we're seeing Travis Konechny. He has, 3 or 4 goals on the year. Joel Farabee, same thing. He's played really well to start the season. Atkinson's got a goal or 2. The Flyers are scoring goals throughout their lineup. Their goaltending. Martin Jones played quite well the other night against the Seattle Kraken. So we're seeing some signs of progress. Obviously, there is some concerns. I don't know what's going on with Ristolainen. He was scratched against Seattle. We'll probably get a better indicator of that this weekend or into next week. But the Flyers, man, they've picked up a point in all 3 of their games so far, and they're going to need to in a very tough Metropolitan Division. I'm just giving you guys a sneak peek here before we round out the final 10. 5 of the top 10 teams are in the Metropolitan Division. That just shows you the overload in this division right now. Again, it may be Eastern bias, whatever you want to call it. But we're seeing those teams here cracking the top 10, and it's going to continue here at number 5. At number 5, we have the New York Rangers. The Rangers have kind of caught me off guard. I didn't like the way they played their first preseason game against the Islanders, but Gerard Gallant has been able to get this team going since then. They didn't have a great opening night in Washington. They didn't play a great first period and a half against Dallas. And they ended up losing those first 2 games. They haven't lost since. They are 3-0 since those first 2 games of the year. And they seem to be running away with things. And you look at they've picked up points in 4 of their first 5 games. You're seeing the goaltending play well. Shesterkin has been great. He stole that game against the Leafs, a game where they were dominated, and they still find a way to win that one. The Rangers, man, are a team right now I would not want to play against. Gerard Gallant has those guys going. Filipino has goals. Alexis Lafreniere has goals. Now we just have to wait for Kako to come back. But the Rangers, man, I got to give them some credit. They have been very good to start this season. At number 4, another Metropolitan Division team is the Carolina Hurricanes. They're a perfect 3-0 on their season. Their competition has been a little bit weaker. I think they've caught the Islanders off guard on the first game. They've played Seattle. They've played, who else did they play? The thing is with Carolina is they've only played 3 games. So I don't really know where they're at. They beat the Habs, a team that is already destined for dead. So how quality of a win was that? I think we're going to get a better idea of the Hurricanes this week. But like I said, I think some of those guys have really stepped up, especially on the blue line. Tony DeAngelo, everybody's giving him a lot of hate. He's been very quiet and just playing well. I don't know who talked to him this offseason, but he's really been good for the Hurricanes. He's really stepped in there quite nicely. Aho, Svechnikov, they're all scoring goals. Teravainen's picking up points. I mean, what more could you ask? I would like to see more from Marty Necas. But again, as that picks up, the Hurricanes. I'm bullish on the Hurricanes. I think they're going to be a team. Calling it early, I think they're a team that could get to the Stanley Cup final this year. Again, a lot of change and turnover this summer, but Freddie Anderson's look great. But again, we need more of a sample size against more quality opponents, and I think we'll get that this week. At number 3 is the Edmonton Oilers. They're the best record team in the league right now. They're a perfect 5-0. And despite not having Mike Smith, and that's why they're at number 1, not at number 1, I'm concerned about their goaltending long term, because now you bring up Stuart Skinner and Mikko Koskinen. That's your goalie duo. What is the number one backbone piece to your team? You've got your quarterback, which is your team in football, and you have your goaltender, which is your team in hockey. So can Koskinen and Skinner hold down the fort for this team? Because I think that's going to be critical. You're only going to have so long where Hyman, Draisaitl, McDavid are going to be able to pull all the weight for you. But they have done that, so give them the credit. They're definitely a top 3 team in the NHL. Give it another week or two, and they should be that top team if they continue. They don't have to be undefeated, but if they can continue at the rate of scoring that they are. They just picked up 10 goals in the past 2 games. This is a legitimate team right now. They just beat up on the Golden Knights. They beat the Calgary Flames. They've been just able to get the job done, and that's all you could ask for, right? So good stuff from the Oilers start the year. The Washington Capitals, they're 3-0-1 to start their season. They've looked great. They just beat the Rangers early on. That looks like a quality win because of how good the Rangers have been. They're in the top 5. They've just found ways to win, and Ovechkin's been good. We're seeing Kuznetsov, who has, kind of had a down season last year in 2021. He's really turned it on this year. Vitek Vanacek, great in between the pipes, and they kind of shut up the Devils fans with a quality victory up in Jersey. So I like what I've seen from the Capitals. Dmitry Orlov is kind of driving the minutes on the blue line with Karlsson, and they're just finding ways to win hockey games. That's all you could ask for. Hendrix Lapierre adding some depth scoring, adding some juice to this room. I gotta say, I like what I've seen from the Caps. And there's a reason I'm wearing the Panthers jersey, because this is Panther time in the NHL. We are just watching the Florida Panthers dominate. And they have done that now for the first 2 weeks of the year. You look at the depth this team has. My goodness, Joel Quenneville is probably loving the rosters that he can make each and every night. Do you want to put Reinhart on the top line? Nah, you know what? We'll throw him on the third line with Lundell and Mason Marchment, and they're going to go off. The emergence of Anton Lundell. Just think about the center depth right now that the Florida Panthers have. You have Barkov, Bennett, and Lundell. Oh yeah, you also have Joe Thornton in there as well, who was scratched the other night. That is how good the Florida Panthers are right now. You have Sam Reinhart firing on all cylinders on the third line, getting depth scoring with Marchment, who's already got 2 or 3 goals on the year. Lundell has 2 or 3 goals on the year. He's been playing great, winning defensive faceoffs late in the game. Joel Quenneville keeping him out there. You're like, what is going on? The Florida Panthers, man. If you haven't been watching the Panthers, make sure to watch from that third line. That may be the best third line in the NHL to start the season. I love what I've seen from Reinhart, Lundell, and Marchment. I'm the number 1 fan of that third line right now. They have been great. And you still have your top 6 forward lines. Huberdeau, Barkov, you have Duclair getting goals, Verhaeghe getting goals. It's a great time to be a Florida Panthers fan. You're seeing Tippett pick up a couple of points here and there. This might be the season for the Florida Panthers. Also, Before we wrap this thing up, congratulations to Sergei Bobrovsky on win number 300 in the NHL. He's one of 3 Russian goaltenders to ever accomplish that. So congrats to Big Bobrovsky. He's been the man to start the season in Florida and kind of making Spencer Knight, kind of have to work to get that starting time because Bobrovsky has been great this season. And after 2 down seasons, in Florida, he really needed this start to the year to build up his confidence. So guys, let me know what you think of my power rankings in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys have in the top 10 because look, in the top 3 alone, we have 3 teams from the Metropolitan Division, 5 teams from the top 10 in this Metropolitan Division. This division has been brutal. They have had the most points in the NHL so far to start this season. And we could see some of these teams like the Islanders, Columbus, New Jersey, they could still move up in the power rankings because of just how good this division is. You look at the bottom. Who is the lowest Metro Division team right now? I have the Islanders at the bottom. Wow. So, there's no bias here. The Islanders at 21 are the lowest Metropolitan Division team. Who would have thought, right? So, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Guys, make sure to check out our Streamlabs shop in the description down below. And you can check that out and make sure you get some goal line hockey swag and you help support the channel. All of that helps. But if you maybe, a little low on the funds right now, I know times are tough. It's free. You can give this video a big thumbs up and to subscribe. Make sure to hit that bell notification as well to get the latest updates on power rankings, news videos, talking about teams around the league. If you want to know the latest about the NHL, make sure you are doing some of those things. Guys, every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we will have a power rankings out for you guys. So every Saturday morning, this will be your power rankings video. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And if I don't see you before next Saturday's Week 2 power rankings, I will see you again during the week. Guys, have a great weekend.